All right, guys, what's up? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be talking about everything that we've been told about Doom: The Dark Ages from the devs, because for me personally, it is one of my most anticipated games, and it was definitely a big highlight apart from Ninja Gaiden in the developer direct that we had not too long ago. So without further ado, let's get right into it. We're going to go through all the facts that we've been told by the devs, and then after that, I'm going to be putting in my own input a little bit, and then after that, we will end it. So let's go straight into it. So the release date of the game is going to be May 15th, so it's not too far away. We're looking at about 4.5 months or so, which is really exciting. We also know that it is actually a prequel to Doom 2016, and it is also focused on tank-like gameplay, but it still is fast. It's centered around shooting, melee, and with a focus on ground power over the acrobatics of what Doom Eternal was. Strafing is going to feel similar to classic Doom and will be viable in the game, which is obviously very good. I've always been a fan of strafe shooting. Next up, we've got new tools and mechanics that include a shield saw in which you can block, throw, and parry and deflect, all from one input. Devs also want you to stand and fight in comparison to jump shooting in the previous game and running and gunning in Doom 2016. But from every single piece of this footage that I've seen time and time again before preparing for this video, pretty much shows that you can pretty much do all of the above. And that's what this game seems to be catered towards when you look at it. And we'll get more into that when we get towards the end of the video, or after I give you everything that the devs have given us. So they basically also tell us that other tools will include an iron flail, an electric gauntlet, and a doom spike mace that are all part of a new melee system, and basically an all-in-one input with combos and upgrades, which is pretty cool. And there's also a new gory kill system that puts more control in the player's hands from pretty much any angle as the player wants. The third input is obviously the trigger. So basically what this means is that you've got crazy ass weapons that can do crazy things. Now, I don't know about you guys, but every single weapon, unlike other first person shooters out there in Doom, ever since Doom 2016 and obviously Doom Eternal, pretty much every single weapon that you use is not only fun to use, but it also has a purpose. And the fact that you can change from any weapon in any order that you want, and depending on the enemies that you choose, is something that definitely seems like they're going to be doubling up on in this game, which has always been part of Doom. But I think they're allowing for more craziness, which is great, especially since the combat is going to be more grounded this time. So let's continue. So devs have made the combat more approachable and flexible with a new difficulty system and sliders that allow players to tune the speed and change the challenge of the game to what fits them best, including making the game even faster than before or slower. I actually like this quite a bit beyond just gameplay, because there are people out there that for some reason with Doom games, including myself over the last couple of years, that I've noticed, like it wasn't always the case, but over the last couple of years, for whatever reason, the game itself, just, I don't know what it is about it, but I just get a little bit of motion sickness when playing it. So if you can change things with these sliders to where you can play the game and not get that motion sickness, then that is something that is very viable. I don't know if it's because of the speed in terms of what's happening in the peripherals, but whatever it is, but it doesn't matter. This is going to be something from a gameplay perspective, as well as a possible, visual perspective, that is going to be more accessible to players. So this is obviously a very cool thing. So we're not just talking about adjusting the FOV anymore. You're talking about adjusting the difficulty. You're talking about adjusting like the overall game challenge, which is great for both new people and veterans alike. I'm actually going to be very interested to see what some of the best players do with that. Next, there's even a 30-story mech that you get to control. And at first glance, it actually reminded me of Titanfall. And there's also a fire-breathing dragon that has a Gatling gun that actually reminds me of Panzer Dragoon at first glance. And both of those are not a one and done, and they have a deep combat system within them, which are great. And I think they also have, they mentioned that they also have their own bosses or sub-bosses within those gameplays as well, which is great. And the interesting fact is that Panzer Dragoon was actually kind of a game that I mentioned in 10 of the greatest video games that I've ever played in over 30 years in that video. So that is very interesting when I saw it. So now, this game is also going to focus on world exploration with a multitude of environments to explore just beyond the combat of the worlds. And they have secrets and treasures and puzzles that will upgrade the Slayer, which is great, because like with no matter what they do with Doom in terms of whether there's a multiplayer mode or not, which this game doesn't seem to have, they've kind of replaced that with, okay, we know what our players want and we're just going to give them more of that, right? So whatever is missing from the Doom game in terms of kind of almost like an a semi open world or an open world choice of exploration to actually go for dungeons and treasures and shit like that is really, really cool. So yeah, there's gonna be like, again, treasures, puzzles to upgrade the Slayer. The game is also going to have the largest play space in any Doom game, and there's secret caves, dungeon-like mines to find vital resources, and there's even some underwater swimming that I've caught a glimpse of, that we've actually all caught a glimpse of. And you can pretty much go and fight and choose the objectives that are completely up to you. So if you want to do something at a very specific time because you just feel like doing it, well, you've got the choice to do so this time, as opposed to a more linear experience. So basically, this game seems to be all about giving control back to the players. And we're not just talking about from a gameplay perspective, but we're talking about like in terms of how you explore. And Finishing Move is going to be doing the soundtrack of the game, so that's a good thing, obviously. And the devs overall seem to have prioritized the story as well this time around, because they've taken the info from the codex that we usually get into where we have to read, and they pretty much put it into the cutscenes of the game this time. So, and it's going to lead into Doom 2016 story and testaments as well. And that's pretty much all the info that we got from the developer direct as far as Doom the Dark Ages is concerned. And one of the things that I have to say after, reviewing all that information is that basically the devs' main goal this time is to basically give us anything that they have not before from a single player perspective when it comes to the game. Because in the first game, they had multiplayer, which was more rooted under traditional multiplayer. And then in the second game, they kind of changed it up with the way they did the multiplayer to where you'd have, like a 2-on-1 situation. One person was a Slayer, and then the other players were like demons and stuff like that. But this time, again, they're doubling down on the single player aspect of the game, which is the main draw for like everybody that has played the previous two games. And for good reason, because that is where your meat and potatoes is at. That is where your main event is at. So what they're doing is giving us more choices and variety in our meat and potatoes, so to speak, if you want to use that analogy, which is a great thing. Because again, when you're taking the gameplay and you're amplifying it in so many different ways and giving players of every single skill level and every single taste within the genre, you give them tools and you give them options. In my opinion, you've got a winning formula, right? I like the fact that they've taken a game like this, at least that's what it seems, right? They've taken a game like this and they're literally not just giving you variety, but giving you options in terms of like, you can approach and play the game in different ways than you did previously, right? So if you do one run of the game, you can completely change it, which also coincidentally just happens to make for great content. And I think a lot of players that are really good, like we're talking like the people that do the speed runs on the craziest difficulties and are some of the best technical shooters as well, people that look for every nook and cranny, people that know the game as better than you're talking about like the top 1 or 2% that play the game, that know it so damn well that they can seemingly play the game with their eyes closed and 100% it on the hardest difficulty and get through it without dying or whatnot, which is pretty crazy. I think there's going to be even more options for them, and I think you're going to be seeing things that are even crazier. And at the same time, they've made the game really accessible to pretty much everybody. So from a single player game perspective, I have to tip my hat to it. I really do, because again, players that have options are happier players. Players that don't have as many limits are happy players. So basically, to me, they've basically taken the word limit and they've limited that word limit. Do I damn near say gotten rid of the word limit? Now, obviously they haven't gotten rid of it, but because they still have to be within their own sandbox, they still have to be a Doom game. They can't go too far off base. I think one of the biggest criticisms that the previous game got was a lot of the, a lot of the platforming mechanics that a lot of people just simply didn't like. I mean, they embraced it, but they still didn't like it and didn't prefer it. So they're like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a similar experience, but we're going to ground it up to what makes Doom games insane, which is what makes Doom games so great. And that is the combat. So basically the combat system has been amplified. The story and exploration has been amplified. And I think even though the pacing of the game in terms of acrobatics is going to be slowed down, I don't think it means that the game itself is going to be slow. And that's going to be completely up to the player in terms of how they approach it. So I don't think slowing the game down with those sliders is going to make the game any easier, actually, because remember, it's not about just slowing the enemies down, but you're also slowing down. You know what I mean? So if you prefer something slower, it's great. Like if you're a Halo player that generally plays slower than Doom, obviously, guess what? You can play Doom at the same pace that you play a Halo, for instance, right? So this leaves room for other people of the same first-person shooter genre to get in here and to actually play it, because they're like, okay, this is something that I can adjust and literally have my cake and eat it too. It's like if only this game's pace was a little bit different, or if it was a little slower, if it was a little faster, or if it was like this, well, they're giving that to your hands. And for me personally, I'm excited for it. That's one of the things that I'm really excited for. And as long as my eyes don't mess with me, I'm going to grind the hell out of the game. And that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that these changes that they're implementing from the options in terms of like in terms of how fast it is, in terms of the peripherals or whatnot, if that basically makes things to where it's easier on the eyes, so to speak, and there's no effects from it, then I think we're in a good spot. I think this is great, and that could very well be one of the reasons why they implemented this, which is great. So for me, I am very excited about the game, and I want to know in the comment section from you guys down below, what particulars about everything that we know so far are you excited about, or are you excited about everything? Because for me personally, I've always loved games like this for their gameplay, but one thing that has me really intrigued this time is the fact that the game is going to have even more replayability and more meat on the bone because of the exploration factor. I love the fact that there's exploration like this, and the fact that you can choose to go wherever you want, when you want, and to have like some sort of a semi-open world type of sandbox in the game is something that is actually very, very appealing to me. And that's something that I've always loved. But at the same time, at the core, the game retains the action that the franchise is known for, which is obviously was what makes Doom what it is. So for me, I'm excited, and I can't wait to hear or read, in this case, what you guys have to say in the comment section below about the game. And with that being said, I'm going to end it here. And I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to watch and or listen. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.